But courtship is where you have seen the person, you believe that is the will of God for you to spend your time together, but you want to relate, to learn about each other's values, the likes and dislikes of each other. Great minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. And small minds discuss people. I am your host, Kwesi Ado Sampon. You are welcome to Issues About Life and Religion.
Hi, I'm Bryson.
Hey, I'm Noah.
Please subscribe now.
Please subscribe now.
Hello there. You're welcome once again to our series dubbed Issues About Religion and Life, a weekly podcast that seeks to discuss the impact of our belief system on our way of life as we seek to make meaning of our existence and our environment. As Socrates has said, great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people. My name is Kwesi Ado Sampon. Somebody asked me, you always say your name is Kwesi Ado Sampon. We don't know who you are, what you are doing. Well, I am a pastor, and I'm a lecturer in this School of Theology, and I'm a lecturer in education also. Well, last week, as I told you, I have been married for 40 years, and last month, my wife and I, we celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary. God has blessed us with 4 great children, 2 young men, 2 young women, who are all married and are having a good marriage by the grace of God. And so I believe that with 40 years experience, I can share 1 or 2 things about marriage with you. Last week, we started the discourse and we're talking about courtship. And we got to the point where we were talking about wedding. But there are a few things that I wish we can share about courtship before we talk about marriage itself. See, what are you really learning? Because we said the period of courtship is a period when we learn from one another. We try to see if we are fit for purpose, if we can live together prayerfully, we seek together. At this period, what are we learning? We are learning the values that each and every one has, what are the person's priorities, and do our priorities coincide? Can we live together? But then there are a few things that we need to look. If we don't form these things at this period, then during marriage, we will not even have it. And the first thing is intimacy. And at this point, when we're talking about intimacy, we're not talking about sexual relations, because we said earlier on that we're not going to have sex as Christians. Pre-marital sex is not the right way to go. And so, when you discuss this with young people, they try to say, but in this new modern world, can 2 people live or have relations without sex coming in? It is possible. With God, all things are possible. These are not antiquated, outdated ideas. These are principles for life that will help you build a right, successful foundation for your life. And so don't discount these ideas as antiquated, ancient. Yes, God is an ancient God. He's also relevant to today. He has the answers to all the problems. And the more the world departs from God and his principles, the more we make problems, we create problems for ourselves. So, as 2 couples, or as a couple in love, planning to marry, learning from each other, trying to see if we can live. I'm talking about intimacy. What is intimacy? Intimacy is not only sexual or physical relationship. Yes, romantic relationship starts with high levels of affection and attraction, but intimacy takes time to develop. You know that very few people feel comfortable exposing their innermost parts, but as people relate for a while, and as they learn to be transparent and display vulnerability, then they can build intimacy or they can extinguish it. If we want to build real intimacy together as a foundation of our future marriage, then the first thing we need to do is to spend quality time together. And when we have time together, we engage in activities we both enjoy. If we're able to get this right when we marry, we will get it right. We don't have enough time because we don't live together. But when we come together, what are the things we do? We have to practice being vulnerable with ourselves to one another. We have to follow through our actions, build trust, build trust with one another. Practice being vulnerable. Apologize when you offend the other person. And this goes mostly to the men. Men don't like to apologize. Because of our macho, we don't want to apologize. But we learn to be vulnerable. That is what brings intimacy. And we can begin having this intimacy, developing it even before we come together. Then it will be clearer. See, it is not just physical. You are knitting our spirits together. And we must learn to be open and discuss our hurts, and discuss our aspirations, and discuss our frustrations together. That is how intimacy can work. We must also learn to show commitment. But you see, a person can only show commitment, first of all, if he is committed to his Creator. If we are committed to God and His Word, then we can show commitment to one another. We are mindful and we invest in the relationship. You know, I have already said that there are things that only married people can do, including sex, including financial support of one another. But during this time of courtship, we have to be very careful we don't get too much into financial support. As I've said earlier on, the two of you, the man, the woman, must be independent, must be working. Go to your profession, you are working, you are independent. It is two independent people that can come together, and then their relationship will be solid and strong. If you look at the reason why African nations are finding it very tough to resist the oppression of other stronger economies, stronger nations, is this: we are not even economically independent. We are still dependent on foreign partners. And when you have independent people coming together, dependent people coming together, you cannot form an independent organization. That is how come you find African Union, we're only independent individually with flag and national anthem. We are not economically independent. And so you have African Union, and China has to build our African Union headquarters for us. How can you get together and think and organize yourself and become a formidable economic power, 56 nations, when you cannot even come together, put money together and build your center? So dependent people cannot come together to form an independent organization. So the lady must be working, the gentleman must be working, otherwise you will form a union where one is too powerful, the other is too subservient, and that does not work. It is just like the traditional marriage that we have, when the man is supposed to be the breadwinner and the woman does more work than the man. Most often the woman is not even respected because the woman is so heavily dependent on the man that she's treated like a baby in the family. It is not right. So the ideal situation is what I'm talking about, and I think that is what the Lord wants, that both are breadwinners, because we live in the modern world. We don't live in the previous world where both are breadwinners and both contribute and both see themselves as equal partners in this relationship, this family relationship. And if that is so, then there can be commitment, there can be intimacy, and there can be communication. These are the three very basic things that help marriages to be established. What do I mean by communication? Communication is when I'm free to say my mind without fear, and she is free to speak her mind without fear. When that happens, we can grow together and have an understanding and have unity of purpose and get to a point where you start your statement and the other person finishes it, because we think together. The Bible says, can two walk together except they agree? So the agreement will not be there when there is a communication gap. So as we learn from one another, the three ingredients that will help solidify this union, even before we do the marriage ceremony, is intimacy, is commitment, is communication. And these will carry over into the marriage. When there is intimacy, when there is commitment, and when there is communication, then we understand one another. Nothing is hidden. The most serious thing, and I've heard this over, I've seen this over and over, is that the man doesn't declare all, the woman doesn't declare all. They marry before they realize that there is something amiss. Once you are courting, be very sensitive to the Spirit of God. Be prayerful and be sensitive to the Spirit of God. Because you see, I have met people and counseled people who have gone through the trauma of divorce. Actually, men of God, pastors. And the question I ask them is, did you pray about this marriage? Yes. So in your courtship, in your relationship, didn't God reveal anything to you about the hidden character of your partner? And invariably, what do they say? They say, yes, I saw it and I ignored it because I was so much in love. Because if you're a child of God and if you are praying, God will reveal to you the things that the other partner has hidden. Because God speaks to his children. Now I'm going to skip over marital issue, the wedding itself, and talk about relationship issues after the wedding. You see, before the marriage, you are so much in love and you are not even being sensitive to the Spirit, and God speaks, you don't hear, then you fall into a trap of the devil. But let's say that everything went well. You had a wedding. After the wedding, you go for the honeymoon. And all this time you are on cloud 9. Everything is going on perfectly for you. We finished the honeymoon, we've come home. Now we are living, we're starting our work, our jobs, and we are living together as husband and wife. It doesn't take long. Then all the fluffy feelings and everything seem to be dwindling away. And what happens is that we begin to get small irritations. Sometimes even the way the woman chews when you are at table eating irritates you. The way the tube of toothpaste is squeezed, because you're from two different homes. You are from a home where they squeeze the toothpaste from the bottom, and then it's coming. And now it's coming up. You even be folding the bottom to make sure everything at the bottom is coming. And then she comes from a home, they really don't care about these things. They takes the toothpaste and it takes the middle and squeeze from the middle. And small irritations. That is why you begin to ask yourself, is this woman really the one? And the woman can also ask, this man that seems so neat, and now he comes home, he throws the left shoe is under the bed, the right shoe is in the sitting room at the kitchen, under the kitchen, or under the center table. One sock is here, the other sock is somewhere. You keep the bedroom neat. He comes and he throws everything about, and then in the morning when he's rushing to work, he's asking, have you seen my socks? And I say, what happened? Then you feel disappointed and dismayed. And what are you supposed to do? Quite recently, I was talking to a young man, and he was saying, I started talking about these things, and he started laughing. I said, why? He said, it's like you've been to my house. You are describing me and my wife. I said, yeah, it happens to everybody. The reason is that we came from different homes. And every home, they have their own, what they do. How are we going to live together and gel together? That is very, very, very important. And so we call something the period of adjustment. When you are well adjusted to your partner in the home, then you know all her craziness. She knows all your craziness, and he has learned to tolerate her craziness, and she has learned to tolerate his craziness. And then you live together at peace. Until the period of adjustment is complete, there is always fighting and quarrel in the house. The most dangerous period for a married couple is the period between immediately after the honeymoon and the end of adjustment. I call that period, you are walking in the valley of the shadow of the death of the marriage. Everyone, you irritate her, she irritates you. What are you supposed to do? This is where your Christian maturity will be called to bear. Because Peter said, love will cover a multitude of sins. Love will cover a multitude of sins. And so, if you really love one another, then you need to make excuses for one another. If you are not prepared to make excuses for one another, then you'll be fighting and fighting and fighting. You have to learn to forgive yourself and learn to forgive the other. So you need to learn to forgive and learn to bear one another up. Because, see, nobody can change anybody. Only God can change somebody. And so, you just have to accept one another. That's all you have to do. You went for her, you went for him, and so you have to accept one another, just as they are. It takes a lot of wisdom for the man to understand that the mood of the woman changes according to the way of women. Because of changes, physiological changes in the body of the woman, there are times the woman is very tolerant. There are times the woman is not tolerant at all. And the things, the jokes that you shared, that she would laugh and smile, a time comes, that same joke, and she's angry. It is because of physiological changes within her. The mood changes. And so if you do not have that wisdom, and you get angry because her mood has changed, then you are making a lot of mistakes, and you are going to have a lot of quarrel. And so you have to allow love. 1 Peter chapter 4 verse 8 was what I was alluding to. It says that, above all things, have fervent love among yourselves, for love shall cover a multitude of sins. And so, let your love cover a multitude of sins. And if you set out to change one another, you'll be frustrated and frustrated and frustrated. So you have to accept the person. And so the best way to traverse or walk this period of adjustment is pray for more love for yourself, for her. And she too should pray for more love for herself, for you. And so that love will cover a multitude of sins. If you set out to change, as I said, your partner, you are setting yourself up for a lot of frustration. So you have to learn to overlook things that makes you so angry, things that make you angry, you have to learn to overlook and accept. So when you wear the jacket or the coat of acceptance, and you accept one another just as they are, that is when you'll be able to overcome or walk the path of adjustment, and you'll be adjusted to one another. There is an old high life song, and it goes like this. Midol senya uti yara, sedi nyame bo wo yara, onfom so ne usuba nyina echi no, midol senya uti yara. I love you just as you are, the way God made you, with all your faults and all your blemishes. I love you just as you are. And that is the way, the attitude that we should take to be able to come to the point of adjustment. Because until we come to the point of adjustment, there will be friction, and small thing will bring a lot of volcanic explosion in the house, and always there is conflict, and we have to learn how to solve conflict. We have to tolerate one another. We have to embrace one another. Acceptance, the coat of acceptance, the jacket of acceptance is what will pave the way for adjustment. Until adjustment happens, there will be conflict, and everybody will hear about us, and people will hear, will say, are these not the people whose wedding was so magnificent and so beautiful? What happened? What is going on? And these quarrels are what often drives people to commit adultery. One person is not happy at home because every day there is fire in Soweto, and then they go out to seek comfort elsewhere. And so if the beginning of split, divorce, the beginning of divorce, it begins with this thing, lack of adjustment. And I'm saying that adjustment can take 5 years, adjustment can take 1 year, adjustment can take 6 months. It depends on the maturity, the spiritual maturity of this couple. When I say spiritual maturity, I'm not talking about you able to exercise spiritual gifts. No, I'm talking about how much Christ is in you, how much Christ has transformed your life. Because if you are living a life of transformation, you are getting closer and closer to the nature, the character of Christ, you will have empathy, you will have sympathy, you will be able to walk alongside your partner, even if your partner is showing immaturity, because it takes two to tango. And with Christ on your side, you should be able to get to the point where you are adjusted, where you understand one another, where you tolerate one another, where you understand the craziness of one another, and you're able to live with one another in spite of, because love is not because of, but love is in spite of. I love you in spite of all the craziness that you do in the house, I still love you. Love is not because of. Love is always in spite of. So, the period after honeymoon. Why is it that honeymoon is so nice and so? Because we are now getting closer. Because at that time, we are consumed with romantic passion. But the romantic passion will die down with time, and we will hit rock bottom. We will come to reality. And when we come to reality, that is where we begin to notice little things that we've not noticed earlier on. That is where things begin to irritate us, because we are getting very used to one another. The person who always comes to you dressed nicely with all the makeup. Now you sleep together, you see her with no makeup. And so we are living together. There's no escaping from one another. That is where all the flaws, and we are full of flaws, all of us, because we are human, we are full of flaws. All the flaws begin to show up, and that is where we need the grace of God. And as we point accusing fingers at one another, see, when I do this, only one finger points to you, but all the rest of the fingers point to me. And so when I say, you didn't do this, you did that, I'm accusing myself. And so when we start accusing one another, that is when the trouble begins to well up and a split is possible. May the Lord help us, grant us understanding that we will be able to overcome the little conflicts, get adjusted to one another, and live and bring honor and glory to the Lord. God bless you for listening to me. Make sure that if you have not yet subscribed, you do subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification button. Make sure you share it to your friends, share it to your children, share it to your enemies if you have any. And God will bless us all. Bye-bye. See you again next week. Courtship is where you have seen the person, you believe that is the will of God for you to spend your time together, but you want to relate, to learn about each other, each other's values, the likes and dislikes of each other. Great minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. And small minds discuss people. I am your host, Kwesi Ado Sampo. You are welcome to Issues About Life and Religion.
Hi, I'm Bison.
Hey, I'm Noah.
Please subscribe now.
Please subscribe now.